Thank you again for giving me this interview. I'll make it really brief. So if you can just maybe start by just going through just kind of in general what writers should know about when they're querying and submitting to an agent, and then maybe we'll get into more specifics.
So with both picture books and novels, I want to see the entire manuscript. Mm-hmm. So it should be a Word file. I don't mind attachments. Some editors prefer not to have attachments, but I prefer it that way. Some editors prefer to have the whole thing pasted in the email, but mm-hmm. I like attachments. I'm fine with attachments. And then there should be a query letter. It should be brief, 1 page at the most. And usually what the query letter covers is who you are, what the project is, an introduction to the project, a brief synopsis, your relevant biographical information. So, if it's a book about bees and you're a beekeeper, I want to know that. If it's not a book about bees and you're a beekeeper, that's maybe not so crucial for me to know. And then just a couple of lines about who the story is for, what intended age group, mm-hmm. and what the book you feel will sell like. What if there's a book out there on the market that you think has a similar audience, it's good to bring that up. A comparative title, it's called. Okay. And that's really all that needs to be in the query letter. Just very focused. Separate the paragraphs. The intro paragraph stating what this is, what you're sending, mm-hmm. the genre. It's a picture book, middle grade, YA. The second paragraph, expand on what it's about, the plot, the themes. Third paragraph, a little bit about the audience and where the book will fit in the marketplace. Fourth paragraph, little brief biographical information about you, and then a closing. And that's a pretty standard query letter format.
So do you like to know if it's, in terms of genres, do you like to know if it's science fiction, historical fiction? Do you need to know all that, or will the story speak for itself?
No, I think that you can state right out mm-hmm. Where it fits in the genre.
Right. And what about the tone of the query letter? Because I've heard it both ways, that some editors like it if you sort of write in the voice of the character. Or, do you prefer more of a business approach to that?
Yeah. Most editors and most agents kind of skim the cover letter for the basic information. Mm-hmm. So I think just a straightforward tone is best. Don't try to get too fancy with it. You can be a little bit casual, or you can mention, like, if you have a personal connection with the editor, if you met them at a conference, you can mention that. You can even be a little humorous, saying, I commented about your shoes and I loved the red shoes you were wearing at the conference, or something kind of silly like that, just to give it a little personal element. But mostly just keep it businesslike and brief and concise.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. Those are all great tips. I also wanted to ask you, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see writers make in query letters?
Making them too long is one of them. We really are, like, when we open up the emails for a new submission, we're just kind of looking for the basic information, what it is, who you are, why you're sending it to us. If you're going on and you're not kind of getting to the point, that can be a turnoff. I mean, mainly what you're doing is you want to whet the editor or agent's appetite for reading the story and get them excited about the story, get them thinking, oh, this is something, that sounds really interesting. But you don't need to explain in detail every plot turn. You do that elevator pitch where you capture the novel, the story in just, at most 3 lines. And you don't need to go into the intricacies.
Okay. And what about endings? Do you like to know the ending? Do you want it to be more of a teaser without necessarily knowing what the resolution is to the story?
I don't think you need to give the ending away if there's like a plot twist. You can mention that there's a twist at the end. You want to intrigue the editor or the agent. You want to make them curious. But at the same time, you don't want to be coy. You want to really tell them what the story's about, and hook them in. It just doesn't really work if you're really coy about what you're trying to do with the story. It does help if you show that you're familiar with the editor's list, the editor's imprint, or the agent's, with the kind of work that the agent has done. If you've done your homework and gone on their website and Googled them and kind of see what their tastes are, and mention, I see that you recently sold a book that was about, that was set in the Victorian age, and this is similarly set in the Victorian age, and thought you might enjoy it. Just kind of show that you're familiar with the work that they've done, and I think that really makes me pay attention, and it shows that it's not just a mass mailing that's going out generic, that's been sent out to every editor and agent out there. That the author has really done their homework and tried to target their pitch really carefully. That I really respect and pay attention to.
One of the things I've always wondered, and this might also be something that other people are thinking of, is if, say, you've published recently a historical fiction, and your story is in that vein, does that mean that you're the right person to query because you like those type of stories, or does that mean you've just published something recently, so you are no longer looking for something that's similar to that?
It depends how similar it is. I mean, if it's a historical fiction story that's set in a small mining town in Pennsylvania, and your story is about a small mining town in Pennsylvania, that's probably too close.
Right.
But if it's just the same genre, that shows that editor has an interest in those kinds of stories. So you don't want to send them something that's exactly the same, but you just kind of want to get a sense of their tastes and their preferences and what kind of stories they like. One of the things that's amazed me as an agent is just how different tastes are between editors. And editors and agents, they have very different tastes one to the other. So, some agents might absolutely love romantic fiction, and others might love very edgy, raw horror stories. So you kind of have to figure out what their tastes are and try to match your story to the right person.
Right. Okay. Okay. And at the workshop, you were talking a little bit about wanting to build your fiction list, but I don't recall if we got to just kind of, do you have any specific things that you are looking for in that list of fiction that you want to build up?
I would love more middle grade. I'm really trying to find some strong literary middle grade.
Mm-hmm.
I
More contemporary stories.
I like contemporary stories. I really like contemporary fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I also like things that are a little gothic and supernatural. I like Victorian settings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an Anglophile and a Francophile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have pretty diverse tastes in terms of my fiction. So I'm open to all types. I'm not probably the best fit for futuristic fantasy or sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
fantasy. But I do really love contemporary fantasy. Like one of my authors just published a book called The Bottle Imp of Bright House with Holiday House. And it's a story about this boy who finds, who comes into the possession of this bottle that has an imp in it that can grant wishes.
Right.
But the twist is that for every wish that's granted, somebody somewhere loses something.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be they lose a car or a house, or sometimes they even lose their life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really interesting story that has some ethical, touches on ethical themes, but it also has this fun supernatural element to it too.
And you mentioned futuristic fantasy and science fiction. Are they the same thing, or are they a little bit different?
I'm not sure. That's an interesting question. I think of like futuristic could be seen as like just dystopian, like the Hunger Games. Whereas sci-fi, I think more of like off-planet.
Oh, right. Okay. So future time rather than like a different planet kind of thing. Like, yeah. Okay.
With robots and aliens.
Where do you think like time travel fits in? Does that fit in? Like if it's time traveling to the past, is that...
if the main setting is modern times, then I would call it probably contemporary fantasy.
Right. Okay.
If it's set in the future, and maybe it goes more into the fantasy realm.
Okay. And is that something you're interested in? I know a couple people who are writing kind of time travel, maybe not fully time travel, but stories with time travel elements to it.
Yeah. I think I'd be up for seeing that. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. It can be tricky to make it work.
Yeah.
Because of course, always a lot of a lot of logical questions, and you have to make sure everything fits seamlessly in your world that you created. But,
right.
So if you can pull it off, yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, Abby. I think that's all the questions I have. And again, I so appreciate your time on this. So thank you very much.